Why nations will kill for asteroids. Imagine a rock, not the kind you skip across a lake, but one floating quietly in the void, 300 million kilometers from Earth. A rock that looks worthless, gray, pitted, lifeless. Now imagine that this same chunk of cosmic rubble contains more platinum than humanity has ever mined in its entire history. Suddenly, that floating brick of boredom becomes the most dangerous object in the solar system. Because here's the ugly truth. Nations don't go to war for ideals. They don't even go to war for freedom. They go to war for resources: oil, land, water, gold. And in the next few decades, the juiciest resources won't be under the sands of the Middle East or locked in African mines. They'll be spinning silently in space, waiting for someone ambitious or insane enough to claim them. NASA has already identified asteroids like 16 Psyche, a metallic giant worth an estimated $10 quintillion in raw materials. That's enough wealth to make every human on Earth a billionaire, or more realistically, to trigger the bloodiest corporate bidding war in history. Think about it. If the 20th century was defined by wars for oil, the 21st might be defined by wars for space rocks. Picture the scene. Futuristic space drills boring into asteroid cores, while fleets of defense satellites conveniently hover nearby, all to protect national interests, of course. Now zoom out to Earth. Flags planted, corporations lobbying, militaries training, treaties quietly shredded. Because when the prize is infinite wealth, diplomacy becomes optional. While Hollywood gave you Armageddon with Bruce Willis saving the planet, reality might serve you Armageddon, corporate edition, where billionaires and generals fight over who owns a rock worth more than every economy on Earth combined. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll see why asteroids aren't just space debris. They're the new oil fields, the new gold rush, and the new reason countries might literally kill each other in the next 50 years. The so-called peaceful exploration of space is already being rewritten behind closed doors. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967, that idealistic Cold War document saying no one can own celestial bodies, is basically a napkin note compared to the trillion-dollar appetites of modern superpowers. Nations nod politely at the treaty in public, then in private, their lawyers sharpen knives and draft loopholes big enough to fly a SpaceX Starship through. Picture the scene. It's 2035. A robotic mining rig lands on a nickel-iron asteroid the size of Manhattan. The American flag is plastered on its hull, but the software running it, licensed from a Chinese consortium. The financing, a hedge fund out of Dubai. And the insurance, a European syndicate. Suddenly, every power on Earth has a finger in this floating cash piñata, and everyone's paranoid the others will smash it open first. Look at the numbers already. NASA's Artemis program isn't just about planting boots on the moon. It's about building the gateway, a permanent station to control lunar traffic, the toll booth to the asteroid belt. Meanwhile, China's Chang'e missions quietly stockpile lunar data, openly planning to expand toward resource extraction. Even Luxembourg, a country with fewer citizens than a mid-sized US city, passed laws in 2017 giving companies the right to own what they mine in space. Luxembourg, the kind of place you visit for cheese and banking, suddenly wants a slice of Mars. On the surface, this all sounds like cooperation, a new golden age of space exploration. But tilt the lens, and you see the chessboard. Each launch isn't just a mission, it's a territorial claim wrapped in rocket fuel. Every satellite orbiting an asteroid is basically a flagpole with Wi-Fi. And if you think nations won't use force, remember this. The US already created a space force. China has anti-satellite missiles. Russia has a long history of militarizing anything it touches, from vodka to cosmonauts. When the first trillion-dollar asteroid jackpot comes within reach, do you honestly believe anyone's going to play nice? Now imagine the militarization part. Mining asteroids sounds harmless until you realize the same rockets that ferry drills and robots can also carry weapons. The same satellites that beam back geological scans can just as easily fry an enemy's systems with a well-timed pulse. Space isn't just a frontier anymore. It's the perfect high ground. And every general since Sun Tzu has preached one thing: control the high ground, control the battle. Think about the precedent: wars over oil pipelines. Check. Conflicts over rare earth metals. Absolutely. So what happens when an asteroid passes within a year's reach of Earth, carrying trillions in platinum, cobalt, or water ice? The nation that secures it could effectively buy global leverage, cheaper energy, cheaper electronics, cheaper everything. That's not just wealth, that's control. The first clash won't look like Star Wars. No space lasers, no dogfights. It'll be silent sabotage. A mining drone suddenly malfunctions near a competitor's claim. A satellite conveniently drifts into the wrong orbit and blocks communications. Then, when tensions peak, someone might decide a show of force is cheaper than diplomacy. History teaches us this. Every time humanity finds a new resource motherlode, the guns follow. Consider this: in 2020, the Pentagon publicly admitted that China tested weapons capable of blinding satellites. In 2021, Russia blew up one of its own satellites to prove it could create an orbital minefield. Meanwhile, private companies like SpaceX are launching thousands of satellites. A civilian web that, in a conflict, instantly becomes military infrastructure. If that doesn't sound like the prelude to conflict, you're not listening. Now imagine, an asteroid mining ship owned by a US company suddenly reports interference. Chinese state media blames mechanical failure. The US Pentagon calls it hostile action. Both sides fire off press releases dripping with denial and threat. Markets tank, space insurance firms implode, and every nation with a space program starts recalculating how much sabotage they can afford before someone fires the first actual shot. Follow the money, and the picture gets even darker. If a single asteroid is worth $10 quintillion in metals, what happens to Earth's economy the moment someone brings even a fraction of that home? Gold, platinum, palladium, all those shiny, precious metals become as common as aluminum foil. The jewelry market collapses overnight. Central banks panic. Billionaires either triple their fortunes or lose everything. In short, one asteroid could destabilize capitalism itself. But here's the irony. Nations won't let it collapse. They'll weaponize scarcity. Don't think for a second that governments or megacorps will flood the market with trillions in platinum. No, they'll drip-feed it like oil cartels, manipulating supply to squeeze out maximum profit. And while they hoard wealth in orbit, the rest of humanity will still be down here paying rent and fighting over gas prices. Now think about the social consequences. If space mining succeeds, the companies leading the charge won't be mom-and-pop startups. It'll be the usual suspects. Trillion-dollar tech giants, defense contractors, state-backed firms. Picture Lockheed Martin, SpaceX, and a Chinese state conglomerate carving up the asteroid belt like it's a cosmic buffet. The rest of the world, reduced to spectators, forced to buy scraps at inflated prices. This isn't science fiction. In 2015, the US passed the Commercial Space Launch Competitiveness Act, giving American companies the right to own resources they extract in space. In other words, Washington already legalized cosmic colonialism. And in 2020, the Trump administration doubled down with the Artemis Accords, a set of bilateral agreements to manage lunar and asteroid resources. Sounds peaceful on paper, but to rivals it looks like the US unilaterally claiming to be the sheriff of space. What happens when a smaller nation, say India or Brazil, wants in on the game but finds itself shut out by these accords? Do they accept a permanent second-class role in the cosmos? Or do they start looking for ways to level the playing field, perhaps by siding with a rival bloc, or by quietly developing other methods? So here's where it all lands, quite literally. We used to look up at the night sky and see mystery, beauty, maybe even gods. Now nations and corporations stare at it like accountants sizing up a balance sheet. Asteroids are no longer celestial wonders. They're vaults waiting to be cracked open. And once humanity reduces the cosmos to a commodity, conflict stops being a possibility and becomes a schedule. It's not all doom. Some optimists argue asteroid mining could solve Earth's resource shortages, ending wars over oil and metals, maybe even ushering in a post-scarcity world. But history has a nasty habit of repeating itself. Every new frontier humanity ever touched, the Americas, Africa, the Middle East, ended with the same pattern: conquest, exploitation, blood. Why would space, the ultimate prize, be any different? So the next time you hear a press release about peaceful exploration, Ask yourself, when there's a rock worth more than every economy on Earth combined, will treaties and good intentions really hold? Or will we replay the same old story, just with shinier weapons and a higher stage? Picture it again. The silent asteroid floating in the black, sunlight glinting off its surface. To some, it's just a rock. To others, it's the key to power, wealth, and dominance. And to nations, it might be the reason to pull a trigger. Which side would you choose? The dreamers who see salvation, or the warriors who see a battlefield? Enjoyed it? Drop a like and share this with someone who loves this kind of talk. Because the future of space isn't just science fiction anymore. It's the next chapter in the oldest story we know, humans fighting over shiny rocks.
China. Next Step Resources.